Welcome back to Off Planet TV. I'm Emily Moyer. Randy Maugans is with me, and we have a really cool show for you guys tonight. So let's get right into it.
Okay, Emily. All right. This is
we're going to start again. This happened because I don't like
it. It's fine. No, leave it.
You can edit it. Okay.
No, we're not editing anything.
Okay.
Anymore.
Everybody,
Never.
I fucked up. There we go.
Done with that. Right. You did. Welcome to Off Planet TV, folks.
Yeah.
There we go.
Here we go. Tonight's guest is a prolific blogger and video maker. His work is focused on teaching the beneficial skills of numerology and gematria to show how our daily mainstream media deceives us for the purpose of serving an agenda that is not for we the people. He is dedicated to exposing who is behind this propaganda and putting an end to it. His intention is to expand consciousness, to help make a greater community of truth seekers, sharing knowledge and broadening horizons. In his own words, all he cares about is truth. Zachary Hubbard, welcome to Off Planet TV.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of your work. I've been following you for a while. And when I first saw your work, it was almost like something I hadn't realized I had been yearning for. By nature, I'm the kind of person that is always looking for patterns and codes and things like that, and have an innate sort of understanding and liking of things like sacred geometry. And so you kind of plugged something into that I was looking for. So why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, who you are, what Gematria is, and how you got into this?
Yeah, so who am I? I am pretty much an ordinary citizen of the United States. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. I was born in '83, so I'm not all that old. I was 18 years old when September 11th happened. I was in my second week of college. I was going to school down in Arizona, being from Oregon. And I had a new roommate who I'd moved in while I was going to school down there with, and we were getting to know each other. And I remember how I woke up September 11th. It was him on top of me, shaking me, telling me I needed to get up. His dad was on the phone. There was an emergency, and he wanted us to turn on the TV. And you guys know what was going on that day. So anyway, as I was watching the TV, to me it felt like a movie, and when the buildings came down, it just, none of it looked legitimate to me. And, you know, from a young age, I've recognized that we live in a war empire. And, you know, our politicians aren't honest people, and so much propaganda. So to me, things were already suspicious for me, by the way. Just George W. Bush becoming the president in the months before September 11th. The election, the recount in Florida, being the son of a former president, a bunch of things already had my attention heightened. I felt like I was on alert. So when September 11th came, the way the buildings fell that day, the story we were given, I just as a young person, I was paying attention to the news. I still remember the details. They were telling it to us. They were saying that at these wreck sites where they couldn't recover the plane or the luggage or the bodies, they were telling us that they'd recovered passports that they thought possibly belonged to terrorists. They'd recovered turbans. I mean, cloth turbans, but you can't find the plane or bodies. I mean, that doesn't even make sense.
They were just intact falls from 30 stories above somewhere, yeah.
Right, and that was the reporting that day. So, I was thinking, okay, we're being lied to. This is ridiculous. They're telling us people in caves attacked the country, and So anyway, I wasn't falling for the lies, but my sister was in Portland, Oregon, calling me on the phone, afraid for my life. She thought like every city, a nuclear bomb was about to go off or something. And I was just saying, just relax. They're trying to scare us or something. So anyway, I tried to talk to people who I was going to school with, my peers, you know, people I kept in touch with in other states. Everyone thought I was crazy for questioning the events. It was like everyone had just bought the story hook, line, and sinker. And I essentially felt as an 18-year-old like I lived in the Twilight Zone. Like I just couldn't relate with my fellow man anymore. Everyone was traumatized, fooled by this story to me that was just such obvious propaganda and lies. And then right away, if you're just paying attention to what was going on, they were starting wars. They were saying they need to pass some Patriot Act where all of a sudden they could have all this extra surveillance on us. You know, I was thinking, you know, the stuff they made us do at the airport, all of a sudden all these new airport protocols you couldn't even bring your toothpaste with, you know, they might just, so anyway, this happened in my life and I just realized I lived in a bizarre place. People did not like truth. People my age when I tried to talk about this, you know, get angry, start screaming, threatening, just telling you know how it is, move out of the country, tinfoil hat, conspiracy theorists. So anyway, I kind of went into truth or hiding for a few years of my life. And, you know, up to that point, I would say I was a normal teenager. You know, I was a good student, but I was focused on, you know, having fun, chasing girls. But September 11th and just what was going on, it made me think like, you know, I have to start doing more as a person. I live in a crazy world. Truth has to be exposed. So I became more isolated. I started studying more, reading more, trying to figure out what was going on in the world. Why were we being lied to this way? I mean, who's really running things? And all this time, you know, it's 15 years later, I've been acquiring knowledge, reading, trying to talk out to people, going out to groups, trying to form groups, trying to be part of 9/11 truth communities, going out and protesting at places. I just realized in America, you know, like people, they don't care. They don't care about the truth. They don't have the time for it. They just want to ridicule it without even thinking about it. And all this time, it's just been driving me nuts. So all this time, I've been looking for something greater, like some really undeniable evidence for what is going on, who is deceiving us, how it's being done, who's responsible. And, you know, it took me from September 11th, 2001 to about August of 2013 until I found this thing called Gematria that I'd never heard of before. But once I heard about it, I was interested in it and I wanted to research it more and apply it to what I was seeing in the news. I thought it might explain some things. And very quickly, what Gematria is it's the practice of coding numbers into words. Gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words. It's an ancient practice. In the history books, it's credited to Pythagoras. They say Pythagoras stole everything from the civilizations before him, but we know Pythagoras for the musical scale, mathematical theorems such as a squared plus b squared equals c squared. He's also credited with this Gematria, this practice of coding numbers into words. And if you read about the Pythagoreans in the time of Rome, supposedly this study of Gematria, very important to them. So anyway, ancient languages such as Hebrew and Greek, which the New Testament were translated in, those languages are based in Gematria, lettering systems based on numbers. And as it turns out, I'm 100% confident the English language is based on this same lettering system. For example, the English language is 26 letters. The Greek alphabet that the Bible was first retranslated in was 26 letters. In Gematria, 26 is known as the God number. And if you take the English alphabet and spell the word God, G's the 7th letter, O's the 15th, D's the 4th, God sums to 26. In Hebrew, God sums to 26 using the same rules. Also true in this Greek alphabet. You know, that alone should make you go, okay, that sounds beyond coincidence. You start considering how the alphabet's 26 letters. It turns out there's a lot of mathematics to 26 that have to do with the shape of a womb and creation, the shape of our eye. It's a bigger topic. But anyway, this was my earliest research, learning about Gematria, learning that it was an important Jewish practice, because my initial theory when I learned about this was that the media was most definitely using this in creating propaganda. If you pay attention to the names of spellings in news stories routinely, let's just go back a little more than a year. My favorite example in the past year's time is the Charleston church shooting by Dylan Stormroof. I mean, just the name alone is just ridiculous. Dylan Stormroof, and they want to put his name in the paper. Dylan Stormroof, white supremacist. In Gematria, Dylan Stormroof sums to the same thing as white supremacist. And if you look at the way his name's spelled, Dylan, they spelled it with 2 N's. I mean, has anyone ever seen a Dylan with 2 N's spelled? I've never seen that as a first name in my life until that. But just if you learn this language of Gematria, you'll recognize that they create the character names to fit with what the narrative of the story is. For example, they gave him a name that matches white supremacist. That was the big theme. He went in and shot a historical black church as a young white male, supposedly full of racial hatred. And that number, the same number coded in that, is coded in this propaganda again and again.
What number is that?
It's the number 74 in this case. And that's also the number that represents Masonic, Jewish, English, Gematria, holiday, Independence Day, alphabetic order. All of those have a Gematria of 74. It's no doubt why this nation's birthday, the U.S., is 7-4. The Freemasons believe in divide and conquer, order out of chaos, destroy and rebuild. They've coded divisive terms, terms of hate, with their numbers, such as white supremacist. White supremacist known for burning crosses. Cross happens to sum to 74. So, you know, once upon a time, I was learning about what Gematria was, and the first thing I wanted to apply it to was Sandy Hook, because I was getting really bothered by this story of this anorexic child that supposedly went in for no, I guess not child, what was he, 20 or 21 or something? But supposedly just for no reason goes in and shoots up a room of first graders, and they want to keep traumatizing everybody with the news. By the way, you asked me to tell everyone about myself. What I was doing for my profession before I was doing this is I was teaching elementary school. I taught in the public system. I was teaching at a private school in Bellevue, Washington, just outside of Seattle. That's the town that Microsoft built. I was teaching there when Sandy Hook happened. At the end of that school year, I decided to do something else. I went back into working in the group home setting, something I did when I was younger, managing an autistic children's home. So anyway, I've always worked with children. My degrees are in accounting and education. I've always been into education, so that's what I was doing. But anyway, 2012, when Sandy Hook happened, I still remember that day. I was teaching at a private school in Bellevue, and parents were literally coming in early that day to pick up their children because they were so traumatized from the news. And I couldn't see the news because I was working at the school, but I was wondering, like, what are they showing on the TV right now to have parents freaking out all the way across the United States of America? I mean, that shooting was in Connecticut. I'm in Washington State, literally all the way across the country. And here are people, parents, truly coming to the school, wanting to get their children because they don't know if they're safe. And, you know, I know parents really care about their children, but obviously to feel that traumatized, the news had to be pumping something. So anyway, when I got home that day, I just saw, I mean, that was the big story. Picture of this kid. As the details came out, if you followed the article, they kept emphasizing that the man was 112 pounds, Adam Lanza. Adam Lanza, 112 pounds. And I wanted to know why they kept reporting that he was 112 pounds. You know, why are they telling us that he's 112 pounds? They're telling us he's hauling around all these weapons, 112 pounds. I mean, that's a really light weight for a man. That's a very slender, thin, very likely unhealthy man. Why are they telling us that? Well, I found this Gematria. At that time, I was looking at the name, the picture. I was trying to figure out if there was something more about numbers and words. Why are they telling us 112? All I knew about 112 at the time is that if you dialed 112 in your phone, it would connect you to 911. 112 is the alt dialing code for 911.
Yeah.
And if you dial it, you'll be connected to 911 right now. I think it's all but 1 or 2 states have 112 that connects you to 911. And 112 internationally is most countries' emergency dialing code. Like Turkey had the January 12th bombing this year. If you saw the news, there was all these ambulances with 112 in the background on January 12th. And like I just saw the 112th World Series end on November 2nd. Anyway, that's another story.
We'll get there.
Right. But so anyway, Sandy Hook in Gematria sums to 112. When I found Gematria and I saw things like that, I started to go, okay, no wonder they're saying he's 112 pounds. It has this association with 911 emergency. They really had people freaking out that day. And then it's coded into the name of the school. So I wanted to do more research. I wanted to see if there were any other major mass shootings in history. This is right after I learned about Gematria. I was applying it to Sandy Hook. I wanted to see if there was anything in the name Adam Lanza. And I was looking through history to see if there were any shootings of first graders before, and lo and behold, there had been. In the UK, there was the Dunblane shooting on the 73rd day of the year. It was the 73rd day of the year. Dunblane equals 73, and so does Adam Lanza. And in the Dunblane massacre, the man supposedly went into a school and shot first graders. He targeted first graders. And because of the Dunblane massacre, the UK, they lost their right to have weapons, except I think hunting rifles, with I think a good deal of security checks to get that hunting rifle. So major gun legislation overhaul in the UK after the Dunblane massacre, which was targeting first graders, and has the numbers coded from that to also what we saw at Sandy Hook. And also with regards to the gematria of just first graders alone, if you don't understand this language, it's hard to appreciate these things, but first graders sums to 144. 144. The word kill sums to 44. If you write out 44 as a word, and you know how 44 has that bizarre spelling? You would think it would have a U in 40, but it's not there. They take out the U for some reason in 40. 44, when you write it out as a word, sums to 144. Same with when you write out the date April 4th as words. April 4th, 4-4 sums to 144. The first ever president to die in office died on April 4th. MLK was assassinated on that date. All throughout history, people have been murdered by the numbers 44 and 144. They're coded into killing and death again and again. First graders happens to equal 144. So I think what we're experiencing are deliberate coded propaganda. And again, this gematria, it's a Jewish practice. If you study Kabbalah or learn about Kabbalah, it's the Jewish mysticism in numbers, believed to have a spiritual impact on people. Kabbalah incorporates gematria, this practice of coding numbers into words. These are mostly Jewish practices. Unless you live under a rock, it is impossible to deny who controls the media, who controls world banking, who controls major industry. It is the Zionist Jewish people in power. And it's not all Jewish people, but this agenda that we are living out, it is very much a Jewish agenda. It's very much in our face. It's very much by the numbers. You read about Jewish Kabbalah and how important numbers are, you start to see why these people code so religiously, because this really is a religion. And it's been going on from the beginning of this nation all the way up to the present, because this nation was founded by Freemasons and Zionist bankers. They weren't called Zionists back then, but whatever you want to call them back then, it's the same movement. It's the same agenda. People call it the New World Order, the Illuminati. It's the network of Freemasonry, Zionism, the Jesuits within the Catholic Church, which is really under the same umbrella. But these people are using this language. They're coding our headlines every single day. When you apply these skills, when you learn this language and pay attention to your media, you see it as if you're the character in the movie They Live, who's discovered that pair of magic sunglasses. For anyone who's never seen that film, it's from the 80s. It's kind of a corny film, but it has there's a real meaningful narrative within the plot. This man sees something going on at a church late at night one night. He wants to know what's going on over there. What's all this buzz with this church in the middle of the night? He goes over there. He finds out these people are wearing sunglasses, and he finds a pair of these sunglasses and puts them on, and realizes all of a sudden he can see things he could never see before. When he looks at the billboard, instead of seeing the product that's being sold, he sees the word obey or consume or money is your God. And at first it's tripping him out. He's like taking off the sunglasses, like, am I really seeing this? And he puts them back on, and he sees the same thing again. And then as the movie goes on, he notices he also sees certain people look a little bit different with these glasses on. And I won't ruin the rest of the movie for you, but this is really what gematria is like. I mean, you see who's selling us out, how it's being done, how it's been done all throughout history, how it's done every day. I've been documenting this for 3 years, showing how the news is literally made up by the numbers every day. And again, just for anyone who's thinking like, oh, this is interesting, but maybe like a load of whatever. Things like Sandy Hook, if you research Sandy Hook, they had that go back and look up this name, Dr. H. Wayne Carver. He's supposedly the man who performed the autopsies on the children, who was laughing and giggling during the press conference. Just his body language completely off. Plus, just think of the name Carver, autopsy. It's all really so sick. Anyway, that man, more than a year before the shooting, literally wrote legislation that became a bill that was passed about making it so the state of Connecticut did not have to disclose children killed under a certain age and shootings or something very specific to essentially what happened at Sandy Hook. And you have to go, well, why would he be writing a bill like that a year in advance? It just shows how planned out it all is, how deliberate it all is. These are the things I saw long before the numbers, but just them constantly reporting and putting things before your face, such as Adam Lanza weighed 112 pounds. It's like, why are they telling you that? There's supposed to be a shooting of children, and they're telling you the shooter was 112 pounds. Why are they telling you that? And if you pay attention to this news reporting, they're often telling you numbers for seemingly no apparent reason.
Over and over, yeah, repeating them, and they'll say them a million times. It's very weird. Yeah. So I have a question. Do you think that they're using these numbers, they're encoding these numbers as like a way for people who understand them to understand that these events are not real, are scripted? Or do you think that there is something that actually happens to people who consume this information that is the result of those numbers? Like the numbers have a spiritual effect on people? Which do you think it is, or is it both?
So it's a great question, and I don't know the answer. I'm in the same position as you. I'm on the outside looking in, trying to figure it out. But here's what I'll say. To code information within these stories for a network with eyes to know, I think that's definitely going on. I think it's like how I've shown these bogus news stories often show who's going to win the sports games later in the day, from college to pro. For all you sports fans, check out my work. I've called all 3 of the championships before the season's even started in the last season, plus way more than that. And the video documentation proof is all there. And I've called these sports champions more specifically than who's going to win. I've called things that would be otherwise impossible. And I assure you, I'm no psychic. I don't have any special powers or connections. I don't know if you can see this show, but I'm a dude in my garage. I mean, that should tell you a lot right there. Anybody can do what I'm doing if you take the time to apply what I have to this study. And a lot of you can learn from me by just watching, 15 of my videos. You can learn what it took me a whole year to acquire. So
one of the things I really like about your work is that you take this and you apply it to the news events, the political things, the sports things, whatever your interest is. You can find a video of his that you will like because you're interested in the topic, and you will then be able to understand what he is talking about, this skill based on that. I think actually we have another guest that comes on this show frequently named Robert Phoenix. He's an astrologer, and he does a lot of interesting things with symbology in sports. And it's a great way to get people who might not otherwise be that interested in truth to start paying attention. And I think I pay attention to sports as well, partly because I was an athlete. I like them, but also many, many years ago, I recognized that there was a connection between what was happening in the world of sports and what was happening in the world at large. And I could almost predict what was going to happen sort of politically by what had happened. And I was a gymnast, and you can see some things there, particularly around the Olympics, but I'm really a big tennis fan. And you've done a little bit of work on tennis. I thought your stuff on Wimbledon in the summer was pretty good. Someday I'll get into a deeper discussion with you about some interesting things in tennis, because there is some really crazy stuff you can find there. But I recognize this, and it's fascinating, but it's also a way people who I could never talk about truth with, I can talk about it when I apply it with sports. I think it's really cool you do that. I think many of our listeners weren't really into sports, but some of them have really appreciated the sports talks we've had with Robert. So I think some of them will like your videos, and I think it's really smart that you do that. The other thing I've always wanted to ask you, and I just thought of it because my previous question, you do something really interesting. You say certain words certain ways. Like you say ISIS, the way you say it in a particular way. And one of the things that I've come to understand through understanding vibration and frequency and sacred geometry is that these have an effect on people's psyches and even the chemistry of their body when they hear things a certain way. Is that why you do that?
Well, I mean, so now I want to go back and watch how I say ISIS, but I feel like when I'm saying it, I usually say it like in a mocking way, like this false boogeyman. And I think that's usually like my tone, but now I want to go back and listen.
So I've never.
It actually sounded like you were saying eyes is.
Yeah. Like, so when I first heard you say ISIS, it sounded the way I think about it. Like I've always felt like they're trying, like there's many reasons, but a specific purpose why they're calling it ISIS. And I think it has to do with what hearing that words and how you hear it. Some of it has to do, just even the way we make sounds in our mouths affects things in our psyche. And for maybe whether you're doing it intentionally or just happenstance, there's something interesting about the fact that the way it's not just that word too, it's several things, and a tone you inflect when you talk about certain things. It's like you innately understand that the vibration will affect people in a certain way. And that's fascinating that you didn't know, but it does. So.
Well, I'm glad. I'll keep it up then. I'm going to go back and listen now. I want to hear it.
Yeah.
You actually hit on a key number early in your narrative, 144. My background is that I wound up doing this, which has basically been a conspiracy, paranormal, black ops, UFO type show back in 2009, coming from doing shortwave and internet radio with a Christian audience where I was decoding the book of Revelation. So when you say 144, you get my attention because that was my gateway into Gematria as well, was when I began to decode the 144,000 in the book of Revelation and saw that there were codes there. You know, just the fact that you have a square root of 12 and that you were basically seeing repeating patterns that go the whole way through that. Oh yeah, the Bible, by the way, 66 books, really? You know, by the time I got done with this, Zach, I walked away from Christian radio and I'm going, this is occultism at its height. I mean, you know, really, it's an encoded book. It's a solar theological system. And so you kind of got my interest because I think 144 and inversions of that are actually some of the key things that I've looked at in numerics as well.
Yeah, just to add on 144, the square root of 144 is 12, like you said. So here's something really interesting about this number. In Jewish gematria, the word time equals 144.
Cronus, Saturn.
Right. It represents Saturn, keeper of time. So just think about the square root of 144 in terms of the way we keep time in this world. 12 months in the year, the way we do it. There's 13 new moons in a year, which I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like more naturally it'd be easier for us to go by that system. But anyway, 12 months in a year, 12 hours in the morning, 12 hours in the evening. You might also be aware of the Fibonacci sequence. They say, you know, God's spiral.
Yep.
The 12th Fibonacci number happens to be 144, which I think is so interesting because the square root of 144 is also 12. So also another thing interesting about 144, the number pi, 3.14, if you add up the first 144 decimal points of pi, they sum to 666.
Of course they do.
And technically, it's called number of the beast, but some people say mark of the beast. Right. And I've noticed that mark of the beast has gematria of 144. I think that's interesting in light of Revelation, talking about the number 666 as well as 144,000 and then this relationship between 144 and 666. Mm. As you said, Revelation, the final book of the Bible, the book of destruction and prophecy, it's the 66th in most Bibles. The number 666 in Jewish gematria, the word prophecy equals 666 in Jewish gematria, and 144 is connected to time. And the number 6, when written out as a word, 6, using the alphabetic order sequence, has a relationship with the word prophecy as well. So 6 connects to prophecy, the 66th book of the Bible, as well as 666. And one other interesting thing about Revelation being the 66th book, the word revelation equals 121. The square root of 121 is 11. And if you take the first 11 numbers, 1 through 11, and add them all together, they sum to 66.
Yeah.
22 books in Revelation, 22 chapters. The master number in numerology is 11. The master builder is 22. And the Bible's just so full of gematria. The New Testament equals 42. It begins with the 42 generations leading up to Jesus. The word Freemason also equals 42. 42-line Bibles. That's what the name of the first published Bibles were. They were also called Gutenberg Bible, which sums to 66, like the number of books in it. So New Testament 42, 42 generations to Jesus. There's a lot of references to 42 throughout the Bible, even in Revelation. Yeah, it's a very coded book, and our English language is largely based on these same numerical patterns that were coded into the Old Testament and New Testament. Philadelphia, the name from Revelation, the original capital of this nation.
So since we got into the Bible and the Christianity thing, I just want to go here since we're there. Zachary, you've received a tremendous amount of vicious criticism from Christians. And, Randy received some too, because he went from doing Christian radio to realizing that wasn't the answer, and to doing this more esoteric stuff. And I mean, some of the viciousness that I've seen people write really horribly nasty things about you. And some of the people who say the most horrible, nasty things about you, steal your work, attribute it to something and someone else, and then just say that you're a Freemason and a Zionist and the devil incarnate. I can't think of anything more demonic or evil than steering people away from truth and knowledge, which is the opposite of what you're doing. So what do you have to say about that? And it might be interesting to hear what Randy has to say about that as well, because he's received in a different way, but a lot of the same kind of criticism that you do.
Yeah, so, yeah, we don't even need to name names, but yeah, a lot of people have done that to me. They've taken my work and they've demonized me. They've said I'm a Satanist. And anyway, within Christianity, unfortunately, you see a lot of predators. I mean, there's all sorts of people taking advantage of Christians and their belief. They're saying, look, I'm part of your belief group too, and then they mislead people. You see it all the time. So, it's really nothing new to steer people astray, using their religion against them. This is a tactic we see all over the place. At the same time, I don't want to be a divisive the purpose of my research, my goal in my research, and I'm flawed, I'm a human being and I say things that piss people off and alienate people, and I don't mean to, but anyway. My goal is to get people to stop fighting over the same tired stuff, because this is what we do. We're like trapped in a cycle in this world. I mean, every election, people are fighting over the same things, voting based on the same things, voting just one way because all they believe in is pro-life or pro-choice, or, they don't think gay people should be able to get married, and they're not even paying attention to anything else. It's like we need to wake up and see what's going on to all of us. And all these things we're fighting over are symptoms of this sick society. And we need to see who is truly responsible for this mess that we're in right now, because we've really all been born into a trap here in the United States. We're told we're free and we're brave, but we're not. We're born into a massive lie. We're born into an agenda. We're born into a system, and you're supposed to conform to that system or else. And part of that system for a lot of us in the United States, and it would be a different religion if we had a different dominant religion here, but the dominant religion is Christianity. In most nations where you're born, you take on the religion of your culture. You believe that. You don't question it. I mean, you see that this is the normal behavior in people, but I've always seen from a young age, we got to start questioning things. I feel like I'm being lied to about everything. I remember, how many more times can I take a test and circle C for Christopher Columbus? Is there anything else to learn about in this world? So...
Yeah, and more false history. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that you say that. So I'm actually half Jewish, but I agree with your assessment of Jews. So and Zionism and stuff. And one of the things that actually, I was raised without religion, but just by my birth, like my genetic, my heritage is half Jewish. And actually, one of the things that is a positive about Jewish culture is that they believe in debating things and arguing things and questioning things for themselves, but not so much. They don't like when other people do it. But yeah, so to me,
the Socratic method, but only for a few of us. Yeah.
And then when I get answers, I question those answers. And I was that kid that was always like, but why? But why? You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that is one of the biggest problems we have here in this country, and I'm sure it's other places as well. Is just this idea that you need to conform or you need to obey as opposed to questioning things. When I think really that's what's kept us in this situation.
Right.
So.
I agree.
Well, I don't think there's materially a lot of difference between the culture of Christianity and the culture of the alternative media on the internet. I mean, there's very little difference. The people on the internet are more varied. They're a little more liberal in some ways, but they're not. The predatory nature. the predatory nature of human beings is pretty much the same. And it all goes back into the split consciousness that we're all operating in because we've been cut off from knowledge. I mean, even that Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Well, they do. You know, and what Zach's doing with the Gematria is this is deep view into how they operate. You know, you asked earlier, is this like a code for them or a code for us? I've studied this stuff since I was a kid in some form or another, and I'm convinced there is an aspect to this, much like the frequencies of voice and sound and things like that, that are very much like spells that are spoken and disclosures that are made as part of the revelation of the method that says, okay, we told you, just because you can't read the code, we still told you. So we're handed that, and then we're given the puzzle trail that we have to get down to figure out the patterns of what we're doing. And I really do think this work in terms of decoding this is really critical for, I don't like the term average people, but let's face it, we're not average people in the respect that we are researchers, we're decoders, we're digging out all of these things. The man on the street doesn't have this knowledge yet. And you know, I'll just say that, Zach, I know you've got a book coming out, and I do hope there's a critical mass that can come as people wake up to what's really going on with this.
We have the same hopes.
Yeah, so let's get into, I'd like to hear, you've been saying from the very beginning that Hillary Clinton is going to win this election, that this whole thing with Donald Trump is part of that. What do you see as we're sitting here, this recording is taking place, this isn't live, this recording is taking place on election night. I'd like to hear sort of, if you want to break down the numbers on this election for the people, and then, and then we can get into, I have some questions about what you think is going on with like some of these emails and things like that. But let's hear your sort of breakdown of the scenario here.
Yeah, so it's just like where to start. How about let's start with yesterday's news that Janet Reno dropped dead at age 78. Mm-hmm. And I've been saying that Hillary, everything's set up for her really, I've been saying Hillary's the next president since 2008 when her and Barack Obama disappeared off to the Bilderberg meeting. So, you know, I've been thinking that this is the setup, you know, this is just the agenda right now. And yesterday, we had Janet Reno drop dead, the first female attorney general. She died at age 78. 78's an interesting number. If you take the reflection of that number, it's 87. The name Clinton in Gematria equals 87. The word voting is 87. From Hillary's birthday to inauguration day is 87 days. And of course, that could be true in any year, but what it tells me is Hillary was destined a long time ago for the White House. And if not now, maybe in 4 more years, but I mean, she'd be getting up there in years. So I feel like the time is now for her. And, you know, it's just so predictable. There's just so many layers here. Let's talk about Janet Reno first, and then other things that I've observed in the last year and really before that. Okay. So Janet Reno dropped dead at age 78. She was the first female attorney general. And of course, she was made first female attorney general by Bill Clinton when Hillary was first lady. And I mean, just think about the timing of this, dropping dead the day before the potential election of the first female president, who very much has a relationship to Janet Reno. Not to mention the news is coming 2 days after an assassination scare in Reno, Nevada, at a Donald Trump convention, the second assassination scare at a convention for him in Nevada. And why in Nevada 2 times? This is why I think. The first Republican debate when they were trying to figure out who's going to be the candidate was in Ohio. The first Democratic debate was in Nevada. And why Ohio and Nevada? They are the only 2 states in Gematria that sum to 47, just like the word president. Tonight, Donald Trump's in a 47-floor building, and Hillary's in a building with a 47 name. We can talk more about that. They're the first presidents to be in New York, a mile apart from each other since 1944 when a Democrat won. Democrats in Gematria sums to 44. But anyway, Janet Reno, her death yesterday, very suspicious. The name Janet Reno in Gematria sums to 102. United States of America happens to sum to 102. Hillary began her campaign on the 102nd day of the year. Her date of birth, October 26, 1947. She's born in the year 47 like President. Her date of birth has 102 numerology. This is a special number to the history of the nation. Hillary has the birth numerology. She began her campaign on that date. CNN had a story after she started her campaign about a 102-year-old woman campaigning for her, a feature story they had running for a while that was just so over the top. You know that the woman couldn't even walk, and they're telling you while she's sitting in this chair that she's out. This is what the media does to us. They really mock us. They tell us what to think, what to believe, while showing you something that doesn't make any sense. And they put these numbers in front of your face again and again. So again, you asked me a question earlier. Are these numbers having a spiritual impact on us? What I've noticed since I was 18 is there is like a magical spell, as if we live in a Disney movie, over people when it comes to truth. People just reject truth. They hate truth. They'll subscribe to the lie so easily. I don't understand how it's done, so I'm trying to figure out how. Is somehow this numerical coding in part to blame? Possibly. I mean, that would blow my mind, but it wouldn't be the first time. So anyway, we just had the Janet Reno thing yesterday. That's the latest sign. It's from the day she announced her campaign. It's to all of the storylines that emerge. Just think about all of the symbolism right now, just in mainstream programming. I mean, what has changed about the movies in the last decade? Okay, it's like you need to have a zombie narrative somehow fit in the movie. It's like Hollywood has to stick in a zombie narrative. And then the next thing that they've been doing for the last decade is kind of making females more the hero. More and more female leads, more and more female heroes. Just this past Sunday, did you hear that the writer of, what's the show on HBO called? Game of Thrones. The writer for Game of Thrones, there was a big story on Sunday that he was taking a break from writing until the election's over because he wants to campaign as much as he can for Hillary. And that made me laugh because anybody who watches that show knows it's got a lot of female leads, I mean, it looks like Khaleesi, the woman's about to take over the world. You know, so the symbolism's just everywhere of this female takeover. And I don't want to say that I'm against having a female leader. I've worked for a company where there was a great female leader. I've worked for a company where there was an awful female leader. And I've worked for companies where, you know, there's poor and good male leadership. So to me, it's not about that. But I know that as a society, you know, there's things that are inherent in us. There are people who believe that only a man should lead. I've heard plenty of women in my own lifetime, including my own mother, say that, you know, women aren't meant to be leaders. So you know, there's just so many things they're bringing at us. They just gave us the first. So look at this. The Freemasons, again, are running the show. Their agenda is divide and conquer, order out of chaos. Right now, every single mainstream outlet, since I checked just before I came on the show, everyone's front page is about how the American people are disgruntled. They don't like either candidate. People are coming out of the polls saying that they voted, but they're not excited at all. It's constant torment. It's constant things to provoke us. I'm sure people listening, just how many people are quarreling over Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton right now throughout the world as we're speaking, as we're listening? How many people are fighting? How many people are at their wits' end? They're stressed out. They're stressed out from living in this world, working hard, paying taxes. You know, now they have to vote between two candidates. And I'm just talking about for people who believe in the system. Now they're forced into this thing where they have to compromise for two people they really don't like. We're just being brought to a head in this society. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm trying to answer this question and give you all the layers of why I think it's Hillary. Think about patterns like this. We had the Clinton administration in 93. We had the 93 World Trade Center bombing. Then we had George W. Bush after 8 years, and we had September 11th also at the World Trade Centers. You know, now we've had Obama, and the Obama administration, it hasn't had like the major false flag, but it's had nonstop propaganda meant to divide us over race, religion, sexuality.
Yeah.
It's just constant divide and conquer. It's familiar faces. It's people we're sick of. And if you start to look at where all these people come from, they all go to the same schools. They all go to Yale. They all go to Harvard. They're all in the same club together. You know, it's just so sad that the American people can't see how they're getting played purposely by this system of lies and agents and deception. So anyway, Hillary Clinton, she's just in this network. Donald Trump, he's posing as an outsider. He's clearly not. You know, he's known in TV. He's an actor. I mean, look at him. He's been in movies, TV shows, reality TV, the WWE. This is a familiar TV personality that has been on TV since 1984, you know, going on 33 years.
Yeah, of course.
Well, he even ran a football league. He ran a football. What was the football league that they had?
It was like he was part of starting Robert talked about this in the show, starting a minor football league, and he did this weird thing where he was like really wanting it to be competitive with the NFL, and he was pushing for it, and then all of a sudden one day he pulled out and said it was never going to succeed. Right? That sounds like exactly what he's doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, you know, I mean, it's so bad in America. If people would just listen to the things Donald Trump said that actually matter, he said he's for stop and frisk in the streets of America. Does anybody really want that? Do you want a president advocating for stop and frisk? In Orlando, just before that suspicious shooting right after the Invictus games, which was also very bizarre, in Orlando, he said that we need to legitimize torture and make it the law of the land. These are his words.
Yeah.
This guy wants legitimized torture, and he's not even being specific about for who.
Yeah.
He wants stop and frisk. I mean, are there people who are really at home that say, well, that's what scares me. I think so many people in America, they say, well, I'm never going to do anything wrong, so I don't care. But people don't realize who they're governed over. You want to give tyrants, you know, the right to stop and frisk, torture. I mean, people just aren't thinking. And plus, what else is he running on? Building a wall? Is that really what's going to... Is that what's going to bring America back? Is that what's going to and just the whole phrase "make America great again"? I mean, when was America really ever great? It's a war empire. Yeah, there's been better times in this country.
That's right. Yeah.
This is a war empire that began out of a genocide. I mean, on Christopher Columbus Day, if you were watching Monday Night Football, the team with the pirate emblem won away. It wasn't a joke. It was some symbolism right in front of your face.
Yeah.
That's skull and bones right there. I mean, 33 again.
Right.
Yeah,
and exactly. Here we're in 2016. I mean, in 2004, we had a presidential contest between the son of a former president who was amazingly going for re-election and John Kerry, who was a member of the same secret society out of Yale, Skull and Bones.
Aren't they cousins as well?
John Kerry and George W. Bush were both members of Skull and Bones. They both got asked about it by Tim Russert on Meet the Press. It was back-to-back weekends, Meet the Press. I used to watch it back then as a teenager, just trying to, I've been studying what's going on in this world. I remember watching that stuff live. I called my mom that morning because she was so freaking out that Bush was going to get reelected, you know, like it was her greatest fear in the world. And I just told her, I said, you know, just get over your greatest fear because he's getting reelected. He's running from a dude. He's running against a dude from the same secret society from Yale where the Bush dynasty's from. I had all that figured out back in 2004 research. And I said, look at that. They're all from Yale. What I didn't know back then was Gematria. Yale equals 43. New Haven CT, as you would write it on an envelope, equals 43. Think about this. The father, George H.W. Bush, was the 43rd vice president. George W. Bush was the 43rd president, and he was elected because of the recount in Florida where his brother was the 43rd governor. Yale 43, where Skull and Bones is. If you look up the death of Tim Russert, we were talking about the number earlier. The official story is that the paramedics responded to him at 1:44 after he collapsed from a heart attack. And I'm pretty sure his official time of death is 2:23, the reflection of 322. He asked them both about that number on Meet the Press. Neither would answer. They said they were members, but they wouldn't talk about it because it was a secret.
Yeah, and I think what I was trying to say before, I think they may actually even be cousins. I think I've heard that. I'm not sure. I mean, there was a little video that a 12-year-old girl did a couple of years back where she proved that like all but 4 of the presidents were related to each other. She was like 12 and she figured it out. So.
That's awesome.
And now, here's another bizarre thing. Since you brought up Kerry, what the hell is he doing going to Antarctica when we're running an election here? Excuse me? Is there something, do you know anything about this, Zach? I mean, help me out here.
Well, hey, Antarctica is one of the big mysteries in my research. A lot of people have disappeared by the numbers up there. That's just what our problem is. Like you said earlier, we've been kept from knowledge. Our whole life, what has really been done to us is we've been kept within a box of information that is mostly not true. It's about as truthful as Christopher Columbus discovered the United States. And we're working in this life with that type of knowledge. And we're wondering why we can't find the simple answers to things. Look, we live in an age where so much knowledge has been collected and obtained, and if they wanted to teach it to us, they could, but the Freemasons pride themselves on being the keepers of knowledge, and that's who's running us. People who are keeping it like a secret so that they control us. We've been lied to about so many things. I mean, we know what people are questioning. People are questioning what the shape of the earth is, and you can't blame them. But my thing is, it's like, you know, let's not go to war over what the shape of the earth is. People,
But
all of
that's
us,
what's happened.
yeah, those of us who see that are wrong, we need to work together. We need to find the answers. We need to get up to Antarctica ourselves and figure out what they're hiding from us up there, because, yeah, surely something bizarre is going on. And also with regards to John Kerry, I also think of 2013 when him and Barack Obama started beating the war drum to go to war with Syria.
Yep.
When it wasn't even that many years earlier, it was John Kerry all against the wars over there. And I was like, I mean, can't people see that these people don't really stand for anything? Not that many years ago, completely against it. Now here he is, you know, ready to go to war with another country.
Yeah, and I think that's a sort of very symbolic of the fact that Democrats used to be anti-war when George Bush was president, and now they're all like, now, I mean, it is crazy. It is so like, I mean, that's one of those things, like, forget all the knowledge being hidden from us. How do you explain that? These people who are so weak-minded and fickle that, like, when their criminal is doing it, it's humanitarian, and when the other criminal is doing it, he needs to be impeached or overthrown or whatever.
You're preaching to the choir. Well, in 2008, I was going crazy. I was living in Seattle. I mean, just like the rest of the nation, people were really Obama crazy. Where I was working at, people were literally bringing in things like cookies with Obama's face and Obama cakes. And it was driving me nuts because I was explaining to people.
I'm not going to ask, like, what flavor.
Right?
Right. It begs the question, but we won't go there.
You know, it's just popped into my head. Remember back when Obama was running, there was like those weird videos of people singing songs about Obama, and Alex Jones was talking about how sick and crazy that was. Well, just the other day he had a video that was like complaining because the media is suppressing a new Trump fight song.
Exactly.
Right? It's fucking sick, man.
It is sick. But that's what I was saying. In 2008, I was saying to everybody, look, you can't be this excited about Obama or Hillary Clinton if you're against Bush, because if you look at how they have voted as senators, they voted for the big wars, for funding the wars, for the big, all the stuff that you think you're for, Obama and Hillary have voted the opposite.
Yep.
So how can you support? And people will be like, oh, I don't know where you're getting your information from. And I'd say, look, you guys, I mean, Obama was just on the campaign trail saying that the biggest issue in the country is we're about to have this vote on immunity for the telecom companies, where it's come out that they've been collecting all of our information, violating our rights. And now we as a Congress, we have to vote on should these people be held accountable or do they get immunity? And Obama was actually saying the right thing. He was saying, we cannot give them immunity. They violated our rights. Well, when it came time to vote, how did Obama vote? He voted for immunity, and then he wouldn't even talk about it anymore. Yep. And this was before he was elected. I said to everybody, you cannot vote for this person. He is no different. You like the way he sounds? Everyone was saying the same thing.
They like the way he talks.
Come on, man. He's way better than Bush. It's time for something different. He's black. You know what? The powers that be know how the masses are, and they get our consent from us. They got the consent of the masses to vote based on race, to do things based on race. And what have they done through the entire Obama administration? Given us racially divisive programming. Yeah. Non-stop.
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. I think some of your best videos are some of the ones where you break down the Black Lives Matter and the Blue Lives Matter and the racial divisiveness. And absolutely. I mean, and this idea that they're saying that, you know, well, the reason that people don't like Obama is because we're racist. Well, then all these racists are the ones who put him in on. It doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Everyone just gets their emotions played on. The whole thing is sick. If people wanted a woman, I loved you had a video a few weeks ago where you said if people wanted a woman and a black person, they could have voted for Cynthia McKinney. She's honest. We'd have been in a lot better shape. That would never happen, though, because her voting record is consistent with what she says. So we can't have her as any kind of, you know, leader or anything like that. I just have a question. So are you I don't believe in government. I think it's a religion, and as soon as people stop believing in it, it'll go away. You know, a voluntarist or an anarchist, whatever. Where are you on this kind of situation? You never talk about this, so I was curious.
Well, I think as a people, if we got rid of our federal government, and we just reestablished community and knew our neighbors, we'd be in a much better world. And people are so fearful. I mean, we're in a bad spot right now because we live in a society where we've all been kept busy our whole lives. So many of us, we don't know anybody that lives in our apartment building, even who lives on our street. It's the same thing all over this nation. People don't know their neighbors. They don't have community. They feel isolated. They don't know who's going to keep them safe if the government's not there. We need a revolution in consciousness. We need to reestablish community, get back together, start growing local agriculture, create community spaces, even like community gardens. That's something Seattle has that's cool that I don't think a lot of cities have. It's not like we have a lot, but there's community gardens up here. And, just things like that. You meet your neighbor, you're growing food. If there's ever an emergency and you're not, like Alex Jones and all these people are preparing you for, your food supply might be cut off. Man, if you got enough local gardens, you don't got to worry. And I think that's what we need to realize as a people. We live in this world that's just full of stuff. We don't need more stuff. This money's controlling us. All it takes to live is, food, water, clean air, to have a shelter, and everything else are luxuries. We have enough stuff in this world. If we just all got together and said, you know what, we're part of an abusive system. All of us are less happy, having less quality of life. And we just organized and said, you know what we're going to do from now on? We're going to reestablish community. We're going to set up.
You just hit on something there. And I've said this for a long time. We are so over-manufactured. We have so much stuff.
Yeah.
We're throwing things away into landfills. We're throwing away vital resources. We're raping the earth, manufacturing only because of a debt-based system that insists we constantly funnel more and more of our energy in the form of these fiat dollars into this system so that the bankers can pyramid off of it with their interest rates. But in fact, we have everything that's ever created is still here in some form. We have raw materials. Nothing's been destroyed. We haven't learned how to repurpose, reuse, redesign, and redeploy things in terms of resources. If we did that, we're not in need of much.
Yeah. Zach, we had a really good, cool guest on our last show. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Derek Brose from the Conscious Resistance. And he was on talking about voluntarism, peaceful anarchy, and building freedom cells in your local community by doing things like, growing food, teaching each other skills, sharing knowledge. He's pretty cool. You should check him out sometime. I couldn't agree more. We're very wasteful people, and we're very easily convinced that we need this and we need that, and really everything that we need is right inside of us and all around us, and we need to stop looking to external things to provide us happiness, security, and comfort, for sure.
I have another question there for you, since we talked about Barack Obama a little bit, and we're sitting here tonight on election night, obviously ignoring the whole thing and having a great conversation. Barack Obama is the 44th president. Is there something in his numbers that holds some sort of, denouement, some sort of final legacy, something that's sitting out there on the edge for Obama?
So what I've decided now that his term is almost over is I think he is truly a tribute to Abraham Lincoln. And let me tell you all that's here. So he's the 44th president, and he was elected exactly 44 years after the Civil Rights Act in 1964. In Gematria, civil rights equals 64. So does Barack Hussein Obama. Perfect matches. They both sum to 64. The first legislation ever passed in this country that had anything to do with race-based rights was in 1864 as well, 100 years earlier, just before Lincoln was assassinated. So Lincoln was the Civil War president. And of course, Obama from the land of Lincoln. Lincoln was born on the 43rd day of the year. Civil War in Gematria sums to 43. So does Charleston, where the Civil War began. And Obama, he's the 44th president, but he's only the 43rd person to be president because Grover Cleveland had a split term. He was number 22 and number 24, so that means the 25th president was the 24th person all the way up to the present. So Obama's really number 43 in terms of person. The day he was elected first, November 4th, 2008, that was a date with 43 numerology. He gave his acceptance speech in Grant Park, Grant Park in Gematria sums to 43. The name Barak in Gematria sums to the same thing as Civil War. Barak connects to Civil War. In Jewish Gematria, Barak also sums to 216, 216, and he's born on the 216th day of the year, 216. This is one of the most important numbers in Kabbalah, this Jewish mysticism. But with regards to Lincoln, Lincoln had an assassination attempt on him February 23rd, 223, the reflection of 322. Masonic equals 223 in Jewish Gematria. But Lincoln had an assassination attempt on him February 23rd, 1861. He would be shot exactly 216 weeks to the day later in Ford's Theater. And Ford's Theater and Willard Hotel. Willard Hotel is where the assassination attempt was. Ford's Theater where he was shot. He was shot by an actor in a theater. Think about that. But anyway, from Willard Hotel to Ford's Theater, 216 weeks. Both of the theaters locations have the same gematria as Freemasonry. Again, it's been Freemasons all this time. Obama, one of the first things he did as president was reopened Ford's Theater. Yeah. One of the first things he did, he opened it on February 11th, 2009, which was a date with 42 numerology, plus February 11th, the 42nd day of the year, 42, number of the Freemasons. It's also been a number stamped on black people. That's another topic. When you write out 42 as a word, it sums to 142. President Obama equals 142. Jackie Robinson did not wear 42 by coincidence. February is the only month that sums to 42. The most hateful word for black people sums to 42. Brothers slang sums to 42. Remember the joke about Bill Clinton being the first black president? He was number 42.
Yeah. Wow.
So and with regards to 42, if Hillary is to be the next president, as I've been saying forever, the word lady equals 42. So does female. I think about her being the first lady to the 42nd president. She'd become 45, 42 plus 45, 87, Clinton 87. Anyway.
You know, let's stop here and take a break.
Good place for a break, because my head hurts right now. That was quite an exercise right there.
I think actually I changed my, when we come back, I want to pick up with what they've done to black people with these numbers. And I want you do a great job of breaking it down. I'd like to hear a little bit, and we can move on from there. So we're going to go to break right now. I'm Emily Moyer, Randy Maugans. We're with Zachary Hubbard. This is Off Planet TV. Track going out is Numbers by Norberto Lusso. See you in a few.
Welcome back to the second half of Off Planet TV with Emily Moyer and myself, Randy Maugans. The website is offplanetradio.com. Don't forget to go over to the website, even if you're looking at this on YouTube. We're going to start blogging more. We're going to start putting up probably materials that aren't going to necessarily be on YouTube. Plus, if you go over there, you get the MP3 versions of these shows, which means you can put them on your phone, put them on, if you still use an iPod, I don't know what people are using now, but the audio versions of all these shows go up there as well. And that's really a place where you can touch base with us as well. And we're back for the second half of the show with Zach Hubbard talking about Gematria, the numbers of how the occult, illuminists, Kabbalists, whatever you want to call them,
Freemasons, Zionists,
are running things. I mean, it's a world by numbers that we're basically looking at here. And it's a programmatic system. It's an occult system. There's witchcraft and Satanism and all kinds of things attached to it. And Zach has done a brilliant job of bringing this forward in a really concentrated study. So we welcome him back for the second hour. Zach Hubbard, welcome back.
Hey, before we go any further, Zach, do you want to tell people where they can find your work and how they, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so my work's at a few different places right now. I have my written blog where there's over 15,000 entries full of Gematria knowledge. It's free to find truth.blogspot.com. If you just search for free to find truth on a web search, it should come up at the top. I have a YouTube channel. Zachary K. Hubbard is my main channel. My backup channel is Free to Find Truth, same name. And every Wednesday I'm on Truth Frequency Radio. Depending on where you are, West Coast, the show starts at 6. It's a 3-hour show. It goes 6 to 9 on the West Coast. On the East Coast, it's 9 to 12. Every Wednesday, Truth Frequency Radio. The show has been named the Gematria Effect. The creator of the show really wanted that name.
All right. Yeah, I like Chris and Cherie over there at Truth Frequency Radio. Nice people. I'm glad you're over there. Okay, so we're going to pick back up where we left off. We were talking about, she was getting into the way that the numbers have been coded on Black people throughout history. And if you've done some really amazing work on this, and it is what they've done with the numbers. You can see the pattern of something really gross. So why don't you get into that? How have they marked Black people throughout history with numbers?
Yeah. So if you become aware of the way they code these numbers with Gematria, you're going to see certain numbers paired together all the times in the media, in these stories that you can look at as divisive stories. The numbers that they code on Black people again and again are 42 and 59. The most hateful word for Black people, 42. Brothers, 42. Boy, 42. Think about how people use that in a derogatory way. Black History Month is February, the only month with 42 Gematria. 42 is the number of the Freemasons, but remember, they believe in divide and conquer. February is also the interesting month with 28 days, but 29 in leap years. In non-leap years, February 28th is the 59th day of the year, 31 days in January, 28 in February. 59 is the other number stamped all over Black people throughout history. Motown Records came out in 59, and not by coincidence. Negro equals 59, slave 59, blues 59, Rasta 59, cracker 59, so many things, 59, that you would associate with Black people. I know cracker is the derogatory term from white people, but suppose that comes from whipping the slaves. That's where the term cracker supposedly comes from. If you write out the number 5 and the number 9 as a word, they're the only two numbers that sum back to 42. 5 and 9, they make up 59, 42, and 59 stamped all over Black people. Last year on May 9th, 2015, it was when the Ebola scare was going on. It was when it was winding down. One of the last Ebola headlines you saw was that on May 9th, Nigeria had gone 42 days without a new case of Ebola, so they were being declared Ebola-free on May 9th after 42 days without a new case. And I assure you that story was just 100% trash propaganda. Just think about what kind of society we live in. They were scaring us with Ebola, and then at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, Obama was laughing it up about how overboard the media went on Ebola. Well, where was Obama during the time that our media was scaring us to say, yo, lay off? Why are we scaring people with needless disease? Anyway, the whole Ebola thing, the whole latest mosquito thing, Zika, it's all coded propaganda. It's all fear-mongering. So anyway, 4259 stamped all over black people. If you go to the year that they say they supposedly discovered AIDS, they say, here's something comical. The doctor who supposedly made the discovery of where AIDS originated out of, this research also came in the 90s, but now they record this in the books as if it's true. They say AIDS, its origins comes from 1959 in the Belgian Congo. Belgian Congo equals 59 in Gematria. The word kill in Jewish Gematria equals 59. Why this number might be stamped all over black people throughout history. Anyhow, the doctor who made that discovery, his name is supposedly David Ho. David Ho. And what it makes me think of is how they scared people with AIDS, mostly about sex. I mean, you think about the name Ho. We're just getting nonstop propaganda by the numbers, mocking names, mocking stories, made up part of rituals. I mean, a lot of black people are convinced that AIDS was created as a disease, as a targeted weapon. A lot of homosexual people feel the same thing. AIDS in Gematria sums to 33, like gay, also like race war. Coming back to the race war, let's talk about 33, the number of master masonry. This number has been used again and again and again, and I can't say it enough, in racially divisive propaganda. Pretty much every story you've heard from Rodney King up to the present having to do with injustice towards a black man or black versus white in the media, O.J. Simpson included, all of these stories are centered on the number 33 again and again. Rodney King was beaten on March 3rd, 3-3. The name Rodney King equals 59. And if you look up what day Rodney King was supposedly born, he was born on April 2nd, 4/2. Not a coincidence. Rodney King was beaten on 3-3 by the LAPD. Both LAPD and police sum to 33. 33 is the number of masonry. It is hard to find a police station in this nation that's too far away from the Freemason Lodge from that town. From small towns to big cities, police departments are right next to the Freemason Lodges. It's been Freemasons running the show from the beginning, so of course they're going to run the police authority enforcing their bogus laws as they do all throughout this nation. How many peaceful pot smokers are in prison? Anyway. Yeah, and with regards to race war, how many of them are minorities? But I mean, there's people of all ages who are victims of the drug war and all races. So anyway, you know, Rodney King beaten March 3rd, 3-3, race war equals 33, torment 33, masonry 33, secrecy 33. Think of a more recent issue that really, or racial story that really got the headlines going nonstop ever since. Trayvon Martin. His initials TM, like trademark. It came out that his father was a master mason, 33rd degree. The initial T is 20, M's 13. T plus 20 is 33. His killer was George Zimmerman, GZ. G's the 7th letter. Z's the 26th. 7 plus 26, 33. What day did they bury Trayvon Martin? On March 3rd, 3-3, the anniversary of the Rodney King beating. You learn this language of Gematria. You decode the names. Oftentimes the names sum to 33. The police officer's names sum to 33. All these incidents you can think of. Michael Brown, you know, Charlie Gardner, Sandy Bland, Freddie Gray, all of these stories again and again and again. It's just the same numbers over and over. It's 33, 42, 59 every single time. And literally I have a chat on the break. The host asked me about the book I'm writing. I have a chapter that's over 120 pages decoding every single race war story you've heard of from the 80s up to the present, and it's just the same thing again and again.
Yeah. So here's my question to you. So you always say that you wanted with your book and with your work to prove definitively that there is this pattern, that something is going on here. The only when it shows up over and over and over this many times, either you're exactly right or we're living in a computer simulation. To me, that seems like the only other option. But even if that were the case, it's the same thing. If we're saying we're scripting things by the number, we're assuming that it's analog and that computer simulation would be a digital, maybe artificial intelligence kind of thing. Essentially, there's still somebody programming that, so it's still something that's being done intentionally. Over the break, Randy, wanted to know about if you find any information about binary code or any of those kind of artificial intelligence with this. Said you haven't done a lot of work on that, but what do you think? Do you think this? I mean, you said you think it's that someone is doing it, or that we're being run through a computer simulation, or is it the same thing? Does it matter?
Well, I think it matters. I mean, if we live in a computer simulation, we're in a lot of trouble. But if it's that they've programmed AI to essentially generate and plan stories and coordinate media and government and police departments, and they've done it by this numerical code, which I think is what is going on,
Okay.
then we can stop that. I mean, we can put an end to that by spreading the knowledge and exposing what's going on. And the reason I think it is that is because of just, again, if you look at the names and the way they spell these names so often, it's just ridiculous spellings. It's ridiculous names like Dylan Stormroof. Here's a good example. A year ago at this time, it was October 2015. We got 2 stories in back-to-back weeks out of Chicago. They were about killings by police of young black teenagers unarmed from a year earlier. Their names were Laquan McDonald and Ronald Johnson. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, constant stories about these 2 young black men shot by Chicago police. And then at the same time, we got a story out of San Bernardino, California about well, at first, for the first 8 hours that the news had that story, they said that 3 white males dressed in all black were on the loose and the police were looking for them. But then 8 hours later, it became a Middle Eastern married couple had shot up their work party for Thanksgiving. So anyway, once this happened, I said, oh my God, I see it. This is all propaganda. This is all a joke. Ronald Johnson, Laquan McDonald, Chicago. McDonald's is headquartered in Chicago. Ronald McDonald.
Yeah.
Their first restaurant was opened in San Bernardino. San Bernardino. And here we have a propaganda shooting, fueling this fake ISIS Islamic boogeyman. And then you also have, fueling the race war. This is the stuff that people are coming home, they're turning on the TV, and they're getting all this negative news, shootings, police out of control, terrorists out of control, terrorists in our own backyard. It's all propaganda. So anyway, I looked and I said, okay, this is why they're doing this year. I was like, well, why are they doing this in 2015? Why is this the year that they're running the Ronald McDonald PSYOP shooting hoax? From 1984 to 2015 is 31 years. 31 is an important degree in Freemasonry. McDonald's in Gematria sums to 31. 31 is the reflection of 13. The M is the 13th letter. So anyway, it was 31 years from 84 to 2015. Why does 1984 matter? Because that's the year of the San Ysidro Massacre, which was the worst.
That's what I was going to add.
At a McDonald's.
Yes.
San Ysidro in Gematria sums to the same thing as massacre. Anyhow, that shooting, it came on July 18th. 18/7, as you write in most parts of the world, like 187, that's the homicide code for the California police. That shooting came exactly 187 days after the death of Ray Kroc, who founded the first McDonald's in San Bernardino. So 187 days after the death of Ray Kroc, we get the San Ysidro Massacre. And where McDonald's is headquartered, it's either Oak Brook, Illinois or Oak Park, Illinois. I think it's Oak Brook, Illinois. Oak Brook, Illinois equals 187 in Gematria. And I don't think that's any coincidence because the food, the chemicals that they're putting in food, it's the slow death. And that's a whole nother topic. But, we really have riddles like this. And why is it McDonald's that's involved? Well, just look at it this way. It is a network that rules over us. They control banking. They control these mega corporations that are all over the globe, like McDonald's and Starbucks, Walmart. This is all part of a gang network. And then they use, their companies strategically in patterns almost as rituals. And what's the incentive of doing this? Well, people aren't going to stop shopping at McDonald's because there's a shooting there. They know this. They got people addicted to the McDonald's. They're everywhere. In a lot of towns, it's all they have to eat. But what it's going to do is people, when they go there, they're going to get that subconscious thought about the massacre. It's going to be more on their mind. So many people are reminded that they need Big Brother to keep them safe from all these fictional shootings. So anyway, that's why I say, I think it's people that are purposely doing this as rituals, mocking us, almost as if they're bored, almost as if they're the Joker in Batman.
Yeah, that's, it's interesting how people won't think at McDonald's that this food is killing me. They'll think from, if I die, it'll be because I got shot at McDonald's, not because I ate McDonald's. That's, yeah. But yeah, there is a really humorous in a sick way layer to all of these stories. I mean, sometimes you laugh when you're doing these videos, and I'm kind of laughing with you because it is so sick, but someone obviously is lacing these stories with a very wicked sense of humor.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay. So next, we were talking over the break about how sometimes the best success that you have with getting people to pay attention to this is when you apply it to sports or music or the space or shape of the earth stories. So we just came off of the World Series with the Cubs, and we're going into heavy football season here. You want to talk about the World Series or?
Yeah. The World Series is a great topic, and I should have brought that up in light of what's going on with the election. So let's just talk about a baseball. And for anyone who's listening and wondering, like, does this guy play sports? Yeah, all I did when I was a child was played sports. I was actually a good athlete growing up. A baseball has 108 double stitches. Major League in Gematria sums to 108. The tallest building in Chicago is 108 stories tall. The Chicago Fire in history started on 10/8. I felt like ABC.com was mocking me. They put out an article during the World Series of all the 108s with the Chicago Cubs. And I mean, it was just a pages and pages article. I could not believe how heavily this number was coded.
I have to interrupt you for a second. Robert Phoenix, a few weeks ago on the show, pointed out about 20, he's the astrologer, 20 108s involved with the World Series as well. And so, yeah, very interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, the last World Series won by the Cubs in 1908, 108 years earlier. In spring training, I was saying, look, 108's the number in baseball. I also pointed out that the phrase "it's over" equals 108. It was a phrase that they used all throughout the NBA season, which had all of the sports leagues are scripted together. That's the short of it. So anyway, I was thinking, okay, it's going to be over. It just lines up too much. Plus, I was thinking about the election to come. They made a point that Hillary was a Chicago Cubs fan in March because the story came up that Donald Trump was about to expose the Cubs for hiding secrets, supposedly. That was a story in the news for one day. And I made a blog post around that time. I said, look, as I've been saying, I started documenting this last year about things lining up for the Cubs this season. So I was already looking at this when March rolled around and everything. I said, here's just more and more clues that it's going to be the Cubs. And I explained in the video that I put out on April 2nd, the last day of spring training, why it was going to be the Cubs this year, how it was going to be a tribute to Hillary. Here's the things you need to know. The last Cubs World Series that they were in was 1945. This is the election of the 45th president. In Gematria, Cubs equals 45. Illinois equals 45. We said Major League equals 108, which is true. The small way, just search for my how-to Gematria video. You can learn this skill in 5 minutes. There's just 2 methods you really want to know. The small way, Major League is 45. So Illinois is 45, Major League, Cubs, last World Series, 1945, 45th race to be president.
Wasn't Charlie Sheen also in a movie called Major League where the team was the Cleveland Indians?
Right. So in spring training, I picked the Cubs to defeat the Houston Astros in the World Series. I said the Cubs are definitely going to win it. I'm trying to figure out what team it is. I thought it might be the Houston Astros because Houston's the only city that sums to 112. It was the 112th World Series. The year before, I had said why the Mets would be in the World Series because New York equals 111. It was the 111th. Things lined up for them more than the Yankees. Anyway. With regards to 45 and curses, if you know baseball, Pedro Martinez turned 45 years old on Game 1 of the World Series as well, which was a clue. He broke the curse with the Red Sox, who Theo Epstein was with. But anyway, there were all these numbers with the 45th presidential race coming up, the Cubs with the tie to 45. Hillary, again, is from Chicago, Illinois. Just like the city of the Cubs, that's why it's her team. At the beginning of the playoffs, once the playoffs were set, I did a video showing why I thought the World Series would be Cubs and Indians. I said, well, I need to reevaluate. The Astros are eliminated. Who's it going to be? I showed that it would be the Cubs in the Indians through the movie Major League, which Charlie Sheen was in. That movie came out in 1989, 27 years ago. MLB, Major League Baseball, MLB equals 27. Significant number to baseball. Think about how in a baseball game there's 27 outs for each team. 27 plus 27 is 54. The word baseball in Gematria sums to 54. Major League Baseball equals 162 games in the season. Anyhow, Major League, it came out 27 years ago, and Charlie Sheen's character wears the number 99. That is a major clue because Illinois in Gematria, the small way sums to 45, the big way 99. And I looked at the Cubs and Indians all-time history playing games against each other, and I noticed that they had played each other exactly 18 times, and they were 9-9 against each other heading into the World Series. Well, at the beginning of the playoffs before the World Series was even set. And I said, see, that's the kind of alignment you look for in these scripted sports because the games of the past, they're all tributes of what's to come in the future. It's like how for the Super Bowl last year in October, I said it was all scripted for the Broncos. By November, I said it would be Broncos over Panthers. I was showing how the last time the Broncos and Panthers had played, the sum of the score was 50 points, signs that they were going to meet in Super Bowl 50 as they did. And remember, as I was putting out these videos, 100 people were commenting a day about what a crazy Looney Tune I was. So, you know, people don't want to acknowledge that this is what's going on, but if you pay attention, if you learn numerology, gematria, what these numbers represent, you'll have no doubt that they're scripting these sports by the numbers, as I have well proven many times over, especially with my predictions. So anyway, there were other clues within the coding of the names of the characters in Major League. I just said this is going to be it. 2 cursed baseball teams. Also, earlier this sports season, when the NBA playoffs were going on, I documented something, and I put a note there. I said, I still like my Astros World Series pick, but this might be a clue that it's the Indians. You can go back and watch that video from June. What happened is the NBA playoffs, the Cleveland Cavaliers were playing cities that, lo and behold, the Cleveland Indians in their baseball season, they were playing the exact same cities at the exact same times, and they had the exact same win streak as the Cavs. The baseball team and the basketball team playing the same opponents, or, well, from the same cities, and having the same win streak. And I said, okay, this is no coincidence. This is a tribute. And what I didn't know at the time was, okay, is this just a tribute because Cleveland, the basketball team's in the playoffs? By the way, before the season began, I showed why the Cavs would win the championship last year, which they did. LeBron James, King James won it on the real King James's birthday, plus a million other things. Anyway, that basketball playoff streak with the Indian streak was a clue. And this is the thing. My research is ongoing. I'm always taking notes and learning things. If I ever see anything like this again in the future, I'm going to be like, okay, there's our clue for who's going to be in this championship. But anyway, the Cleveland Indians this year made it to the World Series. The day the World Series began was October 25th, 2016. 10 plus 25 plus 20 plus 16 equals 71. On that same day, the NBA season was beginning. It was the 71st season of the NBA, beginning on a date with 71 numerology. Cleveland was one of 6 teams playing, one of 3 games going on, being hosted in Cleveland, where the World Series was also beginning that day. The Cubs had not been in the World Series since 1945, 71 years earlier. The Indians in the playoffs coming into that game were 7-1. The starting pitcher for the Cubs, John Lester, was born January 7th, a date that can be written 7/1. Every single game in the World Series had a major 71 tribute, which I documented. I got videos, blog posts. The number was given tribute to throughout the entire World Series. Also, the opening night of the NBA, the 71st season, on the date was 71 numerology. The 2 teams that met in the NBA Finals last year, the Warriors and Cavs, who their star players are both born in the same hospital in Akron, Ohio.
Oh, that's interesting.
Both of those teams, their top 3 scorers scored 71 points for one more 71 tribute. And this kind of stuff goes on every single night in the world of professional sports, the tributes, the planned box scores, the planned game outcomes. The Cleveland Cavaliers opening game that night, the Cavs won that night, and Cleveland won the first game of the World Series. That night, the Cavs scored 117 points. One of the big stories was The Undertaker, the WWE character, was at the game to support LeBron. Undertaker equals 117 in Gematria. So does Ohio. Yesterday, Steph Curry just set a record on 11/7. He's from Ohio, too. What I'm telling people is the NBA Finals this year is going to be Cavs and Warriors again. It's going to be the Battle of Ohio. It's going to be 2017. Ohio's the 17th state. NBA in Gematria equals 17. The reflection is 71, the other number we're talking about. So Ohio, the 17th state, NBA 17. The Cleveland Cavaliers were the 17th team to join the NBA. This year, the Cleveland Cavaliers are in their 47th season. Ohio also equals 47 in Gematria. The Cavs are in their 47th season, and the Warriors won the first ever basketball championship back when they were in Philadelphia, and they won it in the year 47. There's a whole lot more to it. But anyway, these sports, they're all scripted. They're tributes to each other. They're tributes to the election. Game 7 of the World Series finished with a score of 8-7. The name Clinton equals 87. She's a Cubs fan. Remember there was the 17-minute rain delay going into the 10th inning? Ohio's the 17th state. The Cubs, they had their Rookie of the Year, number 17, have the huge games down there in Cleveland.
Even the most, to anyone watching, the most basic symbolism you could find in this was, it was interesting. The Cleveland Indians made it to the World Series at the same time that the Standing Rock issue was blowing up. And in my head, it immediately came to, okay, if they're setting it up as like, you know, if the Indians win, then it's like the Standing Rock people might win. And of course, what happened is the Indians lost, and the pipeline is just, they're just bashing the protesters and going through with things. And, you know, like, even though I knew what the outcome would be, there was that little part of my head hoping that maybe the Indians would win, and that would be some sort of like spiritual mode. I knew it wouldn't be, but, you know, the hopeful part of my head wants that. Right. It was obvious to me that was near, you know, like the Cubs are Clinton, big money, big business. The Indians were the native people, water, things that actually matter, and we can't have that win.
You know, going, if I can just, you've just went through an incredible amount of detail here related to sports, and that's a microcosm of all the other arenas we operate in: politics, entertainment, the music industry. But the level of detail in these numbers that you're breaking out is conceivably beyond the control of human agency on a natural level. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, who orchestrates this stuff? I mean, we're talking about granular detail of numbers. And I don't expect you to know the answer to this. I'm throwing it out for speculation and for an observation so that we can, as humans, wrap our head around this, because we're dealing with an enormous amount of detail in all of these numbers that requires some sort of intelligent orchestration in the background. Do you have any idea what any of that means?
I absolutely see what you're saying, and I pondered on it myself. Real quick, let me make a point about what she just said about the natives before I forget, and then let me address what you're saying. With regards to the Standing Rock thing, it is no coincidence that happened at about the time the baseball season was winding down and the playoffs were coming on. That began September 9th, 9/9, a lot like 99. And 99 is another number I could get into. It's a separate topic, but again, it connects to Illinois. And also that day, the Cubs had their first game against Houston, which equals 112. It was 46 days before the start of the World Series, number connecting to Chicago. Anyhow, that native tribe in North Dakota, Standing Rock Sioux in Gematria, sums to 223, that number of the Masons, the reflection of 322. Curse of the Billy Goat sums to 223, which the Cubs were under. I have no doubt that they purposefully did this, got the right tribe to participate. And the symbolism is there. It's all about, you know, another defeated protest. Big industry won. The people didn't care enough. Another injustice against the people. And they love mocking us this way. This is what they do. They sync up with the sports, with what they have in the news, with the current events. They do it to us again and again. Think about how the World Series is the month of October, Christopher Columbus month, who came over here and planted the seeds of the genocide. It's all very sick symbolism. It's done by the numbers. It's done as a grand mocking. So, okay, now back to your question. How in the world can they be accomplishing these tasks of, you know, planning out the finest details of a box score, a score, what these players are going to score in a game? I struggle with the same question. This is the way I see it. These people are in, like, I don't, are either of you involved in Freemasonry? I'm not involved in Freemasonry. I'm not part of the network.
No, I actually come from a family that was heavily Freemasonic, but I'm not. I disavowed it. But Freemasonry is huge. It is with our culture. There's a lot of people who have family in Freemasonry. It's been here. It's been around. Mm-hmm. It is a real network. It's like when he puts on the glasses and they live, he starts realizing like, whoa, there's more of these strange people around than I would have ever imagined. These people could represent that network. Yeah. And if you have a network of people who are working and you understand an agenda, I mean, if you understand that today's tribute is 71, so your job is to script how the 71 tribute's going to be for your basketball team. And you have to recognize these pro athletes, they're all part of this Masonic network. Freemasonry has taken over the entertainment industry. I mean, it's been that way. Mm-hmm. So they know what the script is. So I see how it could be done the way it's done. But at the same time, it still is mind-blowing. I'm convinced that in the NBA, you know, if you watch so many movies, the same people who make your movies and your TV shows run your news, they run your sports league, it's the same gang. For years in movies with basketball, they've hinted that somehow magnets are being used to control the outcomes of shots. And I don't know if it's exactly magnets, if this is part of the mocking, but there might be technology that a lot of us aren't aware of that can truly influence the path of an object for its destined location. In 2007, the NBA all year ran a campaign with David Blaine, the magician, saying that what people aren't getting is the league uses magnets. That's how they pull it up. And just if you see the things I've documented, you know, it's like the college championship. Before the game, I said the big numbers on this game are 47 and 74. A lot of people watched that video, and what happened at the end of the game is the North Carolina player threw up a ball that was truly like a prayer. He was off balance. It was like a line drive. I've never seen a shot like it. But the ball rattled through to tie the game at 74-74, and I made a video about this. The clock wound down to about 4.2. But then the person, whoever is doing the clock, bumped it back up to 4.7. So the score was 74-74 after this miracle shot with 4.7 left on the clock after I just made, you know, a video saying that these were the big numbers on this game. And this kind of stuff happens all the time with my work. So I feel that I feel like when you're watching sports, it's more of a theatrical performance than you're aware of. And somehow, such as basketball, they have figured out to ensure that shots go in or stay out when they need to. Because I don't know how else to explain the way they line up these games night after night, accomplishing what they do. It's mind-blowing when you're aware of it.
There's a couple things that I want to hit on. This might take us into weird territory, but you just did, so I feel free to go there. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at the backboards of the basketball courts, they look much different than they used to. It wouldn't surprise me if there was all sorts of technology in there, directed energy weapons, electromagnetic weapons, something like that, you know, those kinds of tools and technologies. But I want to go back to something you said. You said that Steph Curry and LeBron James were both born at the same hospital in Akron, Ohio. So the bulk of my research is into mind control and MK Ultra. And a lot of how some of that stuff is done is people born in specific hospitals where those kinds of things are going on. So the possibility, I mean, we know that a lot of singers, entertainers, and athletes for sure have been under certain kinds of mind control programming, that they're born at the same hospital. To me, that's a huge clue that we're looking at two people that from the moment of their birth, or probably even before that, were programmed for these very moments and for these very outcomes. And everything in their life has been, for lack of a better term, almost magnetized to make sure that they end up in that place at that time with those numbers doing those things, and for them to accept it, because so much of MK Ultra is about missions and tasks, and these are the missions and tasks that that have been with them from day one. What do you think?
I completely agree. That's what I'm saying. These people are born and bred to be. I don't know what the layers of it. I mean, some people comment on my work and they say, oh, Zach, it's not magnets. It's very clear what it is. These people are under demonic presence. They have demonic spells around them. It's how they can control the game so well. And to me, that's, I mean, just from me, from what I understand about that world, that's too hard for me to believe. But is that possible? You know, I'm an open-minded person. To me, using technology seems to be more within the realm of possibility in my mind. I mean, I don't know what the answer is to how these people are accomplishing what they are, but you're right. It starts from birth. It's a planned destiny. They're in a system. There's something going on that's being hidden from all the people who support these leagues. But I mean, just think, I mean, anybody listening, think about that. How, and look that up if you doubt that it's true. Steph Curry, LeBron James, born in the exact same hospital in Akron, Ohio. You know, this year the Golden State Warriors are wearing the number 42 on their uniform. 2 years ago, before there ever was a Cavs and Warriors championship, I showed how the night LeBron James scored a season high of 42 points. LeBron James equals 42. This number stamped all over black people. The night LeBron scored 42, I made the point. I said, okay, number 42 is important to the Warriors and Cavs. It's important to LeBron James. They both retired the number 42 for Nate Thurmond. They both retired 42 for this. It's LeBron's season high. I showed how it was a specific date from the upcoming NBA Finals that connected to LeBron and the Golden State. I said, I'm pretty sure this is your NBA Finals this year. It was before either of these teams had met. Well, anyway, now they've gone to the NBA Finals twice. This year, LeBron scored 27 points in Game 7 to win it, and exactly 27 days after Game 7, Nate Thurmond dropped dead at age 74, who wore number 42, retired with the Warriors and the Cavs, which I was talking about 2 years earlier. Wow. And Nate Thurmond is from Akron, Ohio. Akron, Ohio in Gematria also sums to 106, the same thing as prophecy. I talked about this number all year last year when I was explaining all season how it was scripted for the Warriors and Cavs. In Game 7 of the NBA Finals, which was in Oracle Arena where the Warriors play, it was the Warriors' 106th game of the season. And if you look up how tall Oracle Arena is, it's exactly 106 feet tall. These are all things I was pointing out to people.
It's Oracle Arena. That should be also it's Oracle Arena.
Prophecy. And by the way, the word Oracle
is named for the software company, the database company.
And you know what? It wouldn't. Oracle is all sorts of predictive software. It wouldn't surprise me if Oracle is behind whatever artificial intelligence. Yeah.
So here's
talk about in our face. Exactly.
You just threaded the needle there. Okay, so. You know, when I answered that question earlier, I was being kind of abstract because that's actually what I do. But one of the things that caught my thought patterns when I was thinking about doing the show and talking to you is something I observed. People remember the Matrix movie, the cascade of numbers that fell down, the green numbers constantly coming down, this representational matrix. I don't know if anybody's seen the new HBO series, W0rld. The opening credits to W0rld have well, it's basically an android with only the skeletal form playing a player piano. They show the sheet music. The sheet music roll has the notes laid out very similar to the pattern that you see in the numbers of the Matrix. I think they're trying to tell us something abstractly about the construction of the matrix and how it is driven by these numeric patterns.
Yeah, I just, two things just popped up when you said those things for me. First of all, one thing going back. The other thing about Oracle, remember I told you there's so much with tennis and this kind of stuff? Larry Ellison, who owns Oracle, is a huge tennis fan. He owns the Indian Wells tennis tournament. He's best friends with Rafael Nadal, and his software is used in all of these kinds of things with the scores. The tennis has had huge match fixing scandals this year. That's interesting. But when you were just saying the things about the numbers, and I don't know why it just occurred to me, you were talking about W0rld that made me think of Fringe. You know what number stations are, Zach? Have you heard of number stations?
Tell me more about it. That's from the past, isn't it?
So number stations they're these like basically radio signals or stations that you can.
They were shortwave signals.
shortwave signals that people have been picking up since the advent of radio, where there's just people reciting numbers. To figure out where they're coming from or what the numbers mean. I would be really curious to know if they're reciting some sort of code that relates to what you're doing with Gematria. Go look at the Fringe. The TV series Fringe had a great show on number stations, but go look them up. They're a real thing, and people have been, nerds like computer nerds and ham radio nerds and shortwave radio nerds have been trying to figure out forever what these things are. And when you were just talking about the numbers falling down and across the screen, and for some reason I thought of number stations, I would be fast. I just have this gut innate feeling that there might be a connection between the Gematria and those number stations.
There very likely is. I mean, they're coding numbers. They're doing it for a reason. They're doing it all over the place. Yeah, I got to look more into that.
Yeah.
Well, what I really like about what you've done is you've mastered riffing through these patterns, which quite frankly, that's a gift to be able to discern pattern. You're doing pattern recognition. You're decoding. You are basically versed enough in so many areas that you're able to kind of riff through all of these different permutations that are going on. I mean, it's like I've said to Emily, when it comes to sports, I defer to her because she knows much more about it than I do. My areas are technology and music and politics. But I see a deeper grain to all of this, even in terms of what you're doing, which is you're basically, if I understand it, and as we wrap up here, I want you to talk a little bit about the methodology that you use and how other people can begin to do some of this work. Clearly, we need to put together a pool of people that are working at this. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, and I think it's important that we all become decoders on some level. The methodology behind Gematria, you talked about large and small. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, great question. So this is what you want to learn to start. You want to learn these two methods. One's called Simple English Gematria, which is using the alphabetic order. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, Z is the 26th letter. You just use the alphabetic order. The place is the value. I refer to that as the big way. That's called Simple English Gematria. Okay. The small way is known as Pythagorean Gematria or English reduction. It's the same order, A through Z, but you turn each letter into a single digit and then you add. So let's just go to Z, the back. Z is the 26th letter, but it's not worth 26. It's worth 8 because 2 plus 6 is A. Y is the 25th letter. It's not worth 25. It's 2 plus 5 is 7. So in that method, make each letter a single digit, then add the word. That's the big way, the small way. You learn those two methods, you apply them to the news, sports, you're going to see 90% of what you need to see. There's some other related methods, but it's complicated to explain over a radio show.
So do those two methods tend to cross-correlate with each other? Do you use those to proof in other words, are you using two systems together, or do you lean towards one under certain circumstances?
Sure. So if you had to choose which one of those methods is more useful to use, use the reduction one, because typically you're decoding whole headlines. It seems that they use the simple English more in just like a single word or maybe two words, but when they have a sentence, they're coding just think about it this way. Imagine you're trying to code the number 42. And you want to code it into a sentence, or you want to code it into a word. You need the two different methods. How are you going to make 42 fit into a whole sentence using the alphabetic order? So the way I found the truth to this work, and I realized that none of this was coincidence, was seriously just sitting there for months, decoding, documenting, putting it all together, looking for patterns. I noticed in certain things like celebrity deaths, almost every celebrity death you can think of that's curious has the number 38 front and center in it. The word death equals 38. Earlier this year, Vanity died by this number. I saw her major parallels with Prince. I put out a video the day she died, just before the 58th Grammys of Suspicious Death. I said, Prince better watch his ass. He has all the numbers. We're going to be reading about him next. And Prince died in a span of 67 days from her. Blood sacrifice equals 67, and we're connected to Freemasonry. Numbers that show up again and again all throughout this past of suspicious celebrity deaths are 38, 4467. Those three numbers, if you're aware of them, they show up again and again and again. I talked about them in Vanity's death. I was talking about them in Prince's death. Prince died a span of 67 days from Vanity on the 44th parallel. It's just all throughout history, there's certain packs of numbers that get coded into certain things, such as suspicious deaths, you know, false flag shootings, race war propaganda. So that's what it was. It was decoding forever, recognizing these patterns, seeing these clumps of numbers again and again in the same things, the dates, the names, the locations. And it was just like, well, you have to be a fool to think this is a coincidence. This is not a coincidence. I mean, that's just how it was. Just so much documentation until the evidence was undeniable. And now anyone who follows my work, I'm reporting on the same things, the same patterns again and again.
All right. So before we go out here, I just want to, obviously everybody, it's been made very clear over the last 2 hours that Zachary is extremely intelligent and he's got masterful skills at pattern recognition and decoding. And he can be harsh and direct sometimes when you listen to his videos. I think it's necessary. I think people need to hear this and wake up and start paying attention and realizing that they can figure this out, the powers within us. But one of the things that I'm moving more and more towards is we don't just need only smart people in this quote unquote movement to help us move forward. We need people who also really care. And Zachary's harsh sometimes, but he's also, I've been listening to his videos long enough to know he's a really caring person. I've heard him talk about having listeners contact him because they're upset, because they're lonely, because no one else cares about the truth, and they were feeling suicidal. And he talks about the discussions he's had with them. He's brought up people who really want to know the truth, getting together and going to some place like Detroit, buying a building and fixing it up and growing our own food and everybody working together and sharing knowledge and expanding things. I believe him when he says this is all he cares about. So Zachary, hats off to you to, using your intellect for something that's really worthwhile, but also keeping your humanity. And I believe you when you say you care about truth and that you care about people. And I can't say that about everybody I've met in this journey. So
Yeah.
Hats off to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. One more time before we go, your website is free to find truth. What is freetofindtruth.blogspot.com?
That's it. That's the one.
All right. Anything else, Randy?
Not a thing. I need to sit back and think about this for a while. You just turned a lot of keys, and hopefully it turned a lot of keys for people out there.
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry.
Thanks a lot, Zach, for coming on with us. Really.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you very much, and we'll have you back sometime. On the way out, guys, we have a track called System Break by the artist Atmospherics. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.
All right. Take care.
We'll be back.
Truth is out there. It's inside of you. Find it, guys. Good night.